And we are back. We are. Now, from the Department of Redundancy Department, if you have not yet put your contribution to our kitty, please do. And if you have not filled out, if you want to be on our mailing list, please do that as well. As for announcements, we have our monthly storytelling potluck. Mike, where is it going to be this month?
It's going to be
next month,
Miriam and Luther's in Needham in the 11th, September 11th, free, 6:30 p.m., Sunday the 11th. See Ralph if you want to get on the mailing list.
Any other announcements? Ralph, any announcements from you?
No.
You're just dumpster diving. Okay, announcement from Andrea.
Since there's so many unfamiliar people here, first of all, come back every Tuesday night. And things definitely went like this tonight. Sometimes it's a little more relaxed, and there's always open telling. On behalf of Bruce Marcus, and he is now training me to do some of this. If you, just want a safe place to do your thing and try things out and, literally read from a page and do something very rough, this is your space. Welcome. If you happen to be a storyteller, a performer, or a poet, and you are interested in finding out about the feature slot, which is coming up, please see me afterwards and we can talk, because we have both kinds of things going on here. Thank you.
And speaking of features, tonight we have a very dynamic one. A man who I know personally who is very, very creative. He is a force of nature. He is unique, and I don't use that word loosely. He is very unique and very daring, not because he is able to come up here and present a story in front of all of you, but he is not wearing shoes in this gallery. And in this place, even the lice have fleas. So, I will say that he is a man that I admire. He is a man that I cherish hearing, and he is a man that every time he tells a story, he changes you in some way. It's a very touching and very wonderful stories that he tells. Ladies and gentlemen, without any more ado, Michael Curran. Give him a great big hand.
Christmas night, a year and a half ago, I'm driving back to Cambridge after having Christmas night dinner with friends of mine. I'd gone alone. It's often hard for me to be with my friend Andreas and Mary and Carol and David. Everybody's coupled, and I am not. And I try to open my heart to them during the meal and just feel the love. We've been doing this for 30 years. And I was so proud. I really felt loved and loving for the whole Christmas night dinner. And I'm driving home feeling proud. And the lines, the white lines on the road, start to converge. So I'm not sure where I'm driving. And I don't know how, this is the way things work, I somehow know to close one eye. My psyche knows this, and then I'm able to see clearly and get myself home safely. I call my eye doctor a few days later because it was a weekend. And I go in and he immediately, because I told him I'm starting to see double now. Two Joes are better than one. That's what I always say. Two of you all are better than one. He smiled a little bit, but was concerned. And he sends me to the top eye person at MGH, who immediately sends me for an MRI. And I had had one in the past, And I love the MRI. They ask you, would you like to hear some music? And I don't want to. I'd like the MRI music. It's banging, and it has its own heavy metal sound. I'm sure it's healing. Whatever I had would be gone. But no such luck. They get the results very quickly. And Dr. Taylor says, Mike, they found a 2-inch by 2-inch growth in your sinus. We think it's malignant. You've got to get a biopsy. So I go with my beyond significant other. At that moment, we were not quite significant others at that particular stage, so we decided when we go to a hospital, how am I going to introduce Michelle? And so I say, well, she's my beyond significant other. And they think that means that we're even more than significant others, and for us it was, well, we're not quite significant others at this time. So we go in and see Dr. Curry at MGH, and he tells me, yes, we're going to have to operate. And Mike, if we operate and we find it's a malignant tumor, or an aggressive malignant tumor, we would like to continue when we're investigating the biopsy to do surgery on you at that moment to save you the trouble of being opened up again. You know, through the nose they go, and I'm not so happy about all of that at the same time with nobody consulting me. But I'm not sure, because it's just hitting me, And what surgeons do, I've discovered, is, this has happened more than once in this story. He says, go see my colleague, Dr. Holbrook. He's good at noses, I'm good at sinuses. And on the same day, about an hour later, Dr. Holbrook is telling me, we'll do the biopsy, and then if it's an aggressive tumor, and these words don't mean anything to me then, chordoma or chondrosarcoma, I've finally learned chondro means tissue, bone tissue, sarcoma means cancer. They couldn't quite get chordoma is the very aggressive, chondrosarcoma is the less aggressive. It reminded me of Danny Kaye. Did you ever see the court jester?
Yes.
Right, he's trying to poison the king, right? Because the king is out to get him. And he's dressed like a court jester, and he's told the pestle with the vessel has the pellet with the poison. The flagon with the dragon has the brew that is true, so he has to give the king the pestle with the vessel. And he's going and he's trying to remember this, the pestle with the vessel, the pellet with the poison, the flagon with the dragon has the brew that is true. And he's getting close to the king and he's going to succeed. And then the messenger comes and says, there's been a change. Here, the chalice with the palace as the pestle with the... And I feel this way, the chondrosarcoma is less aggressive than the chordoma. It's very, while I'm seeing one, I'm just told I have 2-inch by 2-inch sinus cancer. We go see Dr. Holbrook. He wants to do the same. And I make a habit sometimes. I've written a book called Verse to Better, a poem for each day of the year. And I say that I give this to Dr. Curry, I give it to Dr. Holbrook, and I say, thank you for wanting to care for me. Here's a present for you. It's gonna, when I die, it's gonna be a collector's item. I didn't want to encourage him, but I think it will be one day. And he takes it and says, and this is where I don't know anything about chondrosarcomas and chordomas. I know about poetry and poetry readers, and Dr. Holbrook says, oh, thank you, Michael. I'm going to read one a day for the whole year. And people don't do that, right? They might have intentions to do that. And I know that. And so I know not to trust Dr. Holbrook. I don't trust him. My poetry saved me from at least these two men. Poetry is practical. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So I want to find, another surgeon. I'll call him Dr. Blake. I have many feelings about Dr. Blake. But I go to see him and he has, with my gusto, and he has a wonderful handshake. And you want your surgeon to have really a big hand. It's like a hug. Hello, Mike. Oh, I say, wow, if I'm going to be cut up, Dr. Blake is the man. I like him immediately. But he does the same thing and we don't know yet. And he has to see his colleague who says also we want to do a biopsy, and if we find it's a chordoma, I'm still having trouble with the difference, then we'll save you the being opened up again, and we're going to do it. And when we do it, we're going to first have to go through your nose, and then a month later through your back of your head. The first time you'll be in ICU for 3 days, and the second time for 5. So it does sound, much as I'm just a poet, it sounds a bit serious. I go see Dr. Blake again and I say, Dr. Blake, I really want just a biopsy. Could I please have just a biopsy? And he says, okay, the patient wants just a biopsy. I'm supposed to do what the patient wants. But I'd just like to take a little part of your stomach off and put it in your head for the next operation. I say, please, no, just a biopsy. And I'm not as sure of myself as now. Hopefully this is called healing my sinus cancer, a cautionary tale. I hope this will help all of us, including me too, in the future. Telling it to you will help me remember it. So I say, no, just a biopsy. So we go, my beyond significant other, it's so wonderful that she's caring for me, and even though we're not quite significant others yet, I call her Beso, B-E-S-O, people love it, beyond significant other. And we go, and I'm in my gown, and Dr. Blake says, as I'm, just about ready to do the biopsy, oh, by the way, since you're not doing more than the biopsy, is it okay, Michael, if we just have an intern work with me? And I'm all dressed up, and he didn't, no warning about this. He knew beforehand, but I say, okay. And so then I go under, and they do whatever they do. I don't know. And I come out, and I want to go home. I don't trust Pascal as much as I can. And I start singing on the gurney. Hoist up the John B. sail. I want to go home. And the man wheeling me says, sing it louder. I'm not making this up. And I really am a little weak, and I make the mistake actually of singing a little louder, and it hurts my throat, but I sing it louder. I want to go home, please, and they let me go home from singing that. And when and maybe not wisely, I vomit in the car, and my Beso cleans it up. We go home. She's the hospice nurse, and my temperature gets high in the middle of the night. She's worried. She wants me to go back to the emergency room, and I don't want to. I say, please, let's wait till the morning. And she does, risking her nursing license for us. And in the morning, my temperature goes down. Sunday, Dr. Blake, who I love still, with his big hands and saying the patient said only a biopsy was doing that. I don't think too much about the intern. And he calls me up Sunday morning and says, it took us a while to see what it actually is. We thought at first was a chordoma. If you remember, that's the vessel with the pestle with the pellet with the poison. The chordoma is the aggressive one. It's not a chordoma. It's a chondrosarcoma, and I'm still a little hazy about these, so it's not so aggressive, but we need to do surgery. This is on the phone. We usually, when we see Dr. Blake, we record him. I don't think it's anything different. I think I'm so grateful he's calling me Sunday morning. I'll talk to you as much as you like. And so we talk, and he says, you're going to need those 2 operations. And my symptoms have been getting worse. I see double more and more. I can't drive at night for sure, maybe even in the day. I can't play tennis anymore. It's hard to hit 2 balls coming at you in different directions. I can play with one dear friend of mine who's in the audience. I won't name him because he's just beginning tennis, so we can still have a good time. And I don't have much of a choice. I asked him, could radiation alone help? And he says, no, can't help. You've got to first do the 2 surgeries, and then you'll need radiation after. So it's really, serious. And he says, you'll probably for 6 months you won't even be able to cook. And I'm ready to do this. I have no choice. He said radiation won't help. I buy online the entire Bible in CDs to listen while I'm in ICUs. And I see my primary care physician, Dr. Burchell, who's a brave person. He once was a man, he became a woman. When he wrote his patients, I wrote him back and said, that takes balls, Dr. Sure, and he liked it. He liked it. And Dr. Burchell says, Michael, you need to get another opinion. I say, no, we've gotten 4 surgeons. How could another opinion help us? But Dr. Burchell said that. And early one morning, I woke up and thought, maybe I'll call back MGH and talk to the first surgeon I saw, Dr. Curry. And Dr. Curry had sent me a bill, actually, of $28. It was something uncovered, and I decided to pay it. So we were tight. And I call him, and his secretary says he'll see you at 7:15 Wednesday morning. Before he has to. It was very kind of him. And I bring in the biopsy, and he says, oh, chondrosarcoma. We can take care of this with radiation. Go see Dr. Leach. And the following morning, Dr. Leach calls up around 8 o'clock in the morning. Hello? My name is Dr. Leach. And I assure you, there's a 95% chance with proton beam radiation, we can cure your sinus cancer. Boy, did that sound good. And I told him, but Dr. Blake said you can't. You have to have first surgery and then radiation. He is wrong. I am going to call him and tell him this is a small town. Everybody knows I do this and it works. He will hear from me, Michael. So I decide, he talked to me for an hour and a half. He really wanted me. This was the longest and only long conversation I ever had with Dr. Leach. But I decide to do proton beam radiation. I call back Dr. Blake's office and talk to his assistant, and I say, what's the prognosis if you do surgery? What percentage of people are helped? What's the data? And he says, I can't believe this. We have no data. I'm not making this up. We have no data. I said, well, what's the prognosis? We don't know. And they didn't tell me this. Now I'm calling. I said, well, why did you say I should have surgery? I am not making this up. He said, we had a feeling. Which is okay if you're telling stories, which it was. And I was very upset, called Dr. Blake, but he never called back. And I still love Dr. Blake. I mean, I could, in some images, take this happened to me when I was 5 years old. The neighbor took me by the shoulders. I feel like I'm not going to do this, I'm a storyteller, but, taking him and saying, why did you? But Dr. Leaps, I think, took care of that. So then proton beam radiation is 7 weeks, 5 days a week. I'm a good boy when I decide to do something. I thought I could bike there, but I decided biking back might not be so wise. It's about a half-hour trip. But I do bike to Central Square. It's about 10 minutes. Take the train. I buy one of these, it's cheap passes and put lots of money on it, so I don't have to worry about it. Get to the Proton Beam Radiation Center, which is in the basement of one of MGH's building. And I walk in, the Time magazine while I'm waiting, which is We're also reading St. Augustine's Confessions. And then I walk in, and Dr. Leach, the previous day, had taken me and held me down under a big machine and molded. I can do this. Yeah. He said, don't move. Don't move. Hold your breath. This is important for doing this for you. Do not move, Baker. And so I'm afraid to move. Because I want to be on Dr. Leach's good side, since he's the one who's deciding where to aim the proton. The protons are the heart of the atom. These are beams, and I don't want him to miss. And he did tell me, Dr. Leach said, for sure you're going to lose the hearing in your right ear. I promise you that. So when I go in, this mask is waiting for me. And they lie me down, and they put it on and they clip it, so I can't move. And then, not too noisily, nothing like the MRI, but the proton beams start coming at me, and I'm lying down. And then, after they take off the mask, one time the machine wasn't working, I was on this mask for 45 minutes, and I kind of stagger out. This is just day number one. I get up. On the train, the second day, people are still, the train is interesting because people are double. And I walk in and the technicians say, how are you feeling? And I say, well, it was quite an experience. I'm a little shaken up. And they don't like to hear that. These nice technicians, they don't like to hear that. They don't want to hear that they're hurting me. So I learned after that day, when they say, how you doing? I said, oh, thank you so much for healing me, and they're happy. And I want them to be happy. I want Dr. Leaps and all his assistants to really be happy. Because if anyone's angry at me, just a little proton beam, when you're not very good. So I'm a very good boy, and I'm only saying nice things, and even the Dr. Leaps, who does not take any criticism at all. Like I told Dr. Leaps, I said, we're having trouble sleeping because the radiation is just, I feel radiating in my body. He says, no, you don't. That is not happening to you. This does not happen to people, but I'm treating them. You're imagining it. So I'm good. I'm good. My beyond significant other, who's a nurse, started asking him questions. He does not like that. I decided not to go as much as I wanted to with her. Go alone. Dr. Leaps can do what he would like. I once tried to be nice to him, and I wrote some poems about cancer, asking dear cancer cells, you taught me to love life. Now it's time. The cancer cells, the problem with cancer cells is they don't die. They're immortal. They don't want to die. I said, now that you taught me to love, you've taught me what you needed to. Now you could die. That was a prayer, and I made a nice laminated poem out of a laminated page out of it. Gave it to Dr. Leaps. He wouldn't look at it. Just said, I'll keep it in your file. But yeah, I mean, his assistant said, oh, thank you. So this goes on, day 2, day 3, and I feel, and my good friends are saying, Michael, you can do it. Don't give up. And I feel like it's day 4, and Michael Mack might be like, say, go on, you can do it, Michael. And day 5, Neil would have to kind of pull me into the room, and then they would take me out, maybe, dragging me, and then the second week it would be kind of a stretcher, like I'm fighting Muhammad Ali, and my friends are saying, you can do it, Mikey. I stagger. I do this for 7 weeks. And I don't know if it's going to help me or not. I am trying alternative healings while this is happening. I have one friend who does magnetism for me. He's my repairman. Gene Mason, he says he knows how to fix the toilet by listening to the toilet. He's my kind of guy. So he tried, and it's very nice, magnetic healing, but it doesn't help. He tells me to eat turmeric, which I do every day. He's mostly East American Indian. And my inner voice, I'm listening and I'm feeling, I'm a Quaker, you feel the inner light, and I feel it streaming through me and feeling my head. And I ask, when I have an illness, I ask, okay, what's happening? And I hear, you'll be okay. We're not here anymore. Boy. So that's helpful. Unfortunately, when I do my next MRI, it's still there. So I say, well, it seems to me my inner voice has wonderful wishful thinking and cheering me up, but it needs to be fine-tuned a bit. Well, this goes on for 7 weeks, and during this time I go to a gathering of friends of mine. And, being from Cambridge and a storyteller, everyone in this gathering, this is called Easter over Light. We celebrate Easter and the light changing, and Passover, Easter over light. So we're celebrating all these holidays, and we do performances like we do here. And so I have my friend Beatrice, and I give my cancer a name. It's George. George means farmer or growing. And Beatrice interviews George. And so I go, and this is now George. And she says in her Argentine accent, George, what have you taught Michael? And George says, thanks for asking, finally. I've taught Michael. I hope he learns. He's a hard person to teach anything to. This is the only way he might get it. I taught him, one, to be aware that his eyes have to see the beauty in people. He's been judging people with his mind. No more judging. Take the plank out of his own eyes rather than the speck out of someone else's. He knows that. And I thank George, and she says, and anything else you're teaching him? And she says, George, you don't have to pretend to be so tough. Speak your real voice. And George says, okay. I'm teaching him, when he looks at people, he sees the environment coming through them, which is true. He has to learn to see that way. That people aren't just, people, their surroundings are part of them. So now he sees, so if I look at someone, I would see maybe the green shirt coming through Muriel, my friend Muriel here. This is true, that's what was happening to my eyes. And that's what I'm teaching him. See what's coming through people. And Beatrice says, and what else are you teaching him, George? And George says, he's been way too much in his mind. Way too much in his mind. Tell him to put one hand on his heart and the other hand over his mouth. Feel the love from his heart. Shut his mouth. It's a much better way for him to relate, at least for a while. And so we thank George for these lessons, which I have, hopefully I'm learning. It's a question. The fact that my dear friend Michael Mack began with a question, or ended his wonderful story with a question. I mean, somehow, I really think this is true, that my dis-ease is telling me something very important that I wouldn't learn anywhere else. And so I thank Beatrice, and I thank George. I said, thank you, George. George, now that you've taught me, you think you might consider leaving if I really learn this lesson? Could we have a little deal here? And so the proton beam radiation ends after 7 weeks. And I get an MRI, and Dr. Leach says, how is your hearing? I say, it's fine. Will I lose hearing in my ear? He said, well, maybe not. I told you, maybe you wouldn't, maybe you wouldn't. I'm not making this up. And they do another MRI, and I'm still loving the music, and maybe that's healing me too, as well as the inner light I'm feeling, and the Reiki I'm having, this is Cambridge after all. And the prayers, my friends are praying for me, and I can just feel the energy. So all these things, 6 months later they do an MRI, the tumor, and Dr. Leach says the tumor is now dormant. So I'm not sure what, dormant sounds good, but dormant sounds something you can wake up. But then 6 months later, they do another MRI, again, bang, bang, boom. And I take it immediately to Dr. Leach the following day, and he says, the tumor is, I pronounce, Michael, I pronounce your tumor is dead.
Oh.
I say, is it gone? It's a scar. It's going to always be there. You can't just take it away, but it's dead. And I had been praying for maybe 2 or 3 years to finish my book, my rewrite of First to Better, and another book, Heal Soul, A Step a Day, and a book on Abraham that begins, I have a good beginning in a new book. Call me Abraham, I am the father of over 2 billion Christians. Over 1 billion Muslims, and over 3,500 years of Jews. You think you have problems with your family? So I've got a good opening, and I was praying. I said, please, may I have 2 or 3 more years to finish these books? And then I was ready to die. And when I heard that I'm not going to die from this, people called me and said, oh, you must be very, very happy. And it took a while for me to admit, oh my, I really was close to dying. Although I had the words to really, and now I'm going to live. I've got tears in my eyes. And just this last weekend I saw, I think, the worst movie I've ever seen, and we had we had a great time, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which if it had been a spoof like Airplane, it would be great. It was just one chase scene after another with Indiana Jones. And I loved it. It was no thought at all, just action. And I asked my so could I have a new name now? Call me Brooklyn Corn. My original name was Corn. She called me Brooklyn Corn. And I feel like I'm a young kid again, really. Much more in my body than before. And thank you so much for, I hope this is a healing story for you too. I think it's healing for me even to share it with you. So, many thanks.
In here in Story Space, when we hear something that moves us, something that touches us, something that makes us feel wonderful and alive as this man is, we raise our hands to the heavens, we take a deep and cleansing breath, and we go. One more big hand for Michael Crow.